Om Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishnaya. Lessons for Life from Swami Jagadatmananji's inspiring bestseller Learn to Live, Volume 1, Chapter 2, Infinite Power Hidden Within You. Great personalities like Bhagavan Sri Ramachandra, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, etc., considered to be the personifications of pure, all-embracing love for the entire humankind. Here in this episode, it is discussed that unselfish love will lead to progress and prosperity. Now let us listen to Swami Jagadatmananji's own words on this subject, the echo of love. There are hundreds of great Puritans among us who would condemn and hurl contempt on those who err and those who stray from the right path, and subject them to scorn and ridicule. But how many of us have the skill to expend the necessary patience to bring them around by pointing out their errors, correcting them with love and understanding, and without hurting their sense of self-confidence and self-respect? How many of our teachers, how many of the parents who bring up their children can help in this regard? When youngsters go wrong, the parents lose their temper and admonish them harshly. Don't do this, don't do that, and then leave the children to themselves. With that, the responsibility of the elders is over. There are many who push others down if they slightly slip and never let them get up again, using words of sarcasm and caustic criticism, and show theatrical sympathy, uttering, "Alas, how sad!" Of course, nothing much is achieved by finding fault with the elders for their action. Perhaps they do so as a matter of habit. The ruthless mother-in-law of today was a daughter-in-law in the past who probably faced unlimited scorn from her own mother-in-law. She now readies herself to direct the arrow towards her new daughter-in-law. The senior students in a hostel remember the tribulations they underwent during ragging when they first joined the hostel. At the beginning of the new year, the senior students make the newcomers in turn taste the same humiliation they suffered earlier. Though no teacher liked being caned or punished in their own youth, this abhorrence oddly disappears as they carry on the same brutish practices. Teachers seem to agree theoretically that patience and love are their best tools, but sadly few of them seem to apply them in practice. This is a mentality often encountered in societies long accustomed to colonialism and serfdom, to show humbleness before superiors, to treat inferiors with haughtiness and contempt. A Western tourist, after returning from his sojourn in India, said the following about his experience: "I see it everywhere in India. While meeting another person in India, each one considers whether the other person is superior or inferior in status and behaves accordingly, not on the basis of a spirit of a colleague, a fellow human being, or an equal." It has to be admitted that in the present social, cultural, and educational context, such an attitude of equality cannot be practiced in all spheres of life. It may be observed that even the revolutionaries, the so-called radical thinkers, votaries of equality, intellectuals among us, would like to maintain a supervisor-laborer relationship with their followers. Many of our intellectuals who have no experience in constructive work are not aware of the harm done by such an attitude. When trying to inspire useful work, which requires a spirit of consultation, cooperation, and sharing of responsibility. Though they may be aware of it, yet they don't intend to translate it into practice. And even though they have the intention, they can't make up their minds to bring it into action. Once I asked the chief of an office, who was well known to me, a man in a high position, given to speaking emotionally with an air of great concern about issues like social reform and eradication of castes, whether he had ever called for a meeting that included all the staff in his department. I felt that although he was given to much talk about these issues, he had not actually put them into practice in his own workplace. The perceptions of status associated with each job caused the members of the staff to interact with each other without a sense of true fellow feeling. There was no sense of a familial relationship marked by mutual love, trust, or help in that office. In fact, the heads of departments limited their interaction to each other, having little to do with their subordinates most of the time. To be continued. Education and training are required not merely for the oppressed, but also for the oppressors. They are required not merely for the common man, but also for the leader, not merely for the uneducated, but for the educated also. A cat once sat huddled in a corner of a garden near the bungalow of a rich landlord. It had been suffering from unbearable hunger, but had incessantly encountered violent kicks, menacing threats everywhere it went. It had finally run away in utter fear and desperation. The children of the house, however, were used to treating birds and animals with kindness, feeding them tenderly and bringing them up with love. Moved by the apparent condition of the cat, they approached it, called it tenderly, and offered it food, realizing that it was starving. The cat did not move from its spot. In spite of excruciating hunger, it did not touch the food. If children went too near, in fright it snarled and tried to frighten them away. The children entered their house and watched what the cat was doing. Looking cautiously around and assuring itself that nobody was around, it slowly ate the food that had been offered and left the place. It began coming every day, waited in the corner for the milk, lapped it up when they poured it out into the saucer, but still kept looking upon them with suspicion and fear. After being fed for nearly 6 months, it started mewing when it saw the children approach. After nearly a year of witnessing the constant attention and care of the children, it became more confident, came near them, lay on their lap, and started playing with them. Being accustomed only to violence, it was not in a position in the beginning to understand the feelings of love expressed by the children. You men who have gone ahead, men of wisdom, efficiency, and culture, the downtrodden need unstinted love, not the exhibitionistic philosophy, not the exhibitionistic philanthropy promoted and expressed only for the moment. Who can show this tolerance and unstinted love? If the leader of the oppressed classes had witnessed such tolerance and love, If he had experienced it, he would have been able to share it with others. If you have not received, how can you give? We should not forget that pure, unselfish love itself is the ultimate path to progress. Those who are on the higher rungs of society should realize this first and share their possessions with those on the lower rungs with devotion and modesty. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.